Okay, so we're continuing our study on the benefits of the commandments, and the reason that we are planning to post this one is because we're going to do this the week after Passover, and we're not actually going to do an actual YouTube video that week. We're going to revisit a study that we had done a couple of years earlier, so this is different than the other videos. For the handful of you that watch this, we're basically doing a midweek open forum study on the idea of how the scriptures are beneficial. And I think that people today are so caught up in problems that they're looking at, just like a problem. People don't want to talk about like spiritual things or read the Bible or get into things on a deeper level because they're probably saying, how is this going to benefit me? So then if there's something in the Bible that will justify them, then they say that benefits me. Or if there's something in the Bible that will solve a carnal problem, then they'll say that it benefits them. And so what we're doing on this study, although we're not posting a lot of videos on it, is we're talking about different commandments. So we talked about where it said to not forsake the assembling yourselves together, how hospitality would fix the loneliness epidemic, give us more emotional wisdom, cause us to be closer to each other, give us more love. So we finished that topic last week, and so this video is going to be on how if people thought in terms of forgiveness like they did during the Christian age, how would that benefit society? So Luke chapter 16 verse 15, starting in the red, he says, "You are they which justify yourselves before men, but God knoweth your heart. For that which is highly esteemed amongst men is an abomination in the sight of God." I thought this verse would be interesting because I don't think a lot of people would say, wow, this really benefits society. But when you dig into it a little bit deeper, you can see how realizing what is popular, how it's an abomination to God, if that concept was well known, like it was, how much it would benefit society. Okay, so the first question of the evening is, how could this verse help a person to overcome our obsession with what is popular? I think it's become an epidemic in the last 20 years. I'm going to have to reword question 2 a little bit. So we have a tiny audience, but if anyone watching this wanted to see more of this, it would be helpful to mention it in a comment. This one's a little different than our normal videos where I'm giving constant information. There's a big gap, and if you're watching this, it'd be helpful if you wrote down the questions, then wrote down the answer, and then hit play. So question number one, starting with Benjamin, otherwise known as late for supper. How could this verse help a person to overcome our obsession with what is popular?
If you realize what's popular is not important to God, it should cause you to ask yourself, what is important to God? And then you'll seek something deeper and value that over what's popular.
I mean, that's definitely true. Definitely true. Definitely good answer. Emma?
So what's popular changes and it's inconsistent. What's good and right is consistent. So it's to help around you in that.
Yeah, I guess that would help you to then appreciate this verse, realizing the consistency of it. Lily?
And if you believe in the verse and you believe in God, you have to overcome it in order to not become an abomination yourself.
That's a good answer. I mean, if you just listen to it casually, you might not realize it. But if you think of it a little deeper, that's kind of
It's giving you a guardrail.
yes. And Richard.
So I said it would strongly encourage you to question popular opinion with the understanding that it is highly likely to be wrong or against God's will. So it would almost cause you to judge popular ideas with somewhat of a negative bias. Like you'd have to believe if everybody agrees on this, it's most likely wrong based on the verse.
I think the obsession with popularity has become an epidemic. It has destroyed our political system. It's destroyed families, destroyed dating life. Like people are now only dating somebody that fits a social image that they think is accepted. Like people being obsessed with a social image is basically being obsessed with popularity. Except popularity has shifted in the last couple of decades. Like there was a time when there was one thing that was popular or two things. Now it's fragmented. People find a social circle and are obsessed with that. And I think that's part of the reason people didn't realize that the obsession with popularity has gotten worse. But because of the obsession with popularity, then we're not valuing truth anymore. We're not valuing consistency anymore. Our morality is no longer based on virtue versus sin. It's more based on what's popular versus what isn't popular, or like we talked about in our Saturday study, like fear. We have like a fear-based morality system, and everybody believes that it is reality. Like for some reason, people have an inability to look back 20 years ago and say, okay, we had different values then,
Right.
and if we were happier then, if families were closer, and then they were close 20 years before that than they were 20 years ago. Obviously, we're going in the wrong direction. Like you don't get bad results from doing the right thing.
Right.
So the obsession with what's popular has not benefited society at all. Hasn't created better values. Hasn't made people more mentally sound. It has not caused us to make more intelligent decisions, and it's definitely been destructive. But I think in the Christian time, you read a verse like this, then you're not going to sell your soul for what's popular or assume because something's popular, it always has to be right. Like I think when there was more faith in God, people knew there was a higher power that was infinitely right. And now people are viewing popular opinion to be infinitely right, even if they know it's not true, which is kind of strange.
Yeah.
The thing where Jesus is the truth, you kind of could measure what he says to reality. Whereas now people are not putting reality at all above what's popular. Now I need to rephrase question 2 a little bit. Okay, let me read it first and then you can rephrase it afterwards. Okay, so if a person believed in this verse, then how would it help them from putting their opinions as part of their identity? It's slightly different than how we were. I made a little mistake here, but what I just said is not a mistake. And for those of you watching the video, there is no mistake because you don't have the worksheet. Like, I think this is why rhetoric is becoming more persuasive than reality, because people are putting their rhetoric as part of their identity. Okay, so Ben, so if people were to believe in this verse, how would it help them overcome making their opinions part of their identity?
If you're not trying to fit in with any group, you will identify your opinions as opinions based on facts, but understand that you or the facts could be wrong and be open to changing your opinions.
I'd say close. That's close to 100% accurate. It's that it's okay to identify with a group, especially if it's God's group, but it should not supersede the truth.
Okay.
And I mean, it's almost easy to think what you're thinking because we live in an apostasy. there isn't.
There's a chance the opinions could be right.
Right, or there isn't any groups. I mean, there isn't.
Yeah.
You know, it's we live in apostasy. Okay, which Emma.
The opinion wouldn't become part of your identity. It would just be based on the information you have. And you would stay open-minded. If more information becomes available, you're not boxed into the one thought.
Yes, that's definitely on the right track. I'd add a couple more pieces of information, but I'll wait till I give my answer to Adam. Lily.
I would say would dissolve the desire to fit in a specific identity.
Yes, and I'll just say ditto to my last statement. Richard.
So I said identity tied to opinions is based on a popular consensus. If you believe the consensus is likely to be wrong, then you might try to come up with your own opinions based on facts, evidence, or results.
Well, like Paul says in Romans, he says, I die to self and live to Christ. And I think I can't remember if it's Philippians or which book it is, but he said that, that he had great confidence. I was a Pharisee of the stock of Benjamin, but I counted all but dung to win Christ.
Yeah.
So if I were to paraphrase Paul's 2 points, right, I would say that, for instance, I, like Paul, was a very self-confident person in the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I become a Christian, my confidence no longer is based on self. That I learned to have confidence in the truth, where Jesus is the truth. So I'll put the values of God to be what I value and what I cherish, but then I no longer feel that I need myself to be esteemed.
Yeah.
And the same thing would be true with identity.
Yeah.
Is that you want to identify our position in heaven and not view our position in earth to be a value to our substance, our self-esteem, and who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you believed that whatsoever things were highly esteemed amongst men. Or you could look at another verse that says the same thing, which is pick the straight gate, for
Yeah.
broad is the way that leads to destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Then you if you actually realize that we live in a fallen world and the majority opinion of the world is doomed and it doesn't create life. But I think another way to esteem these things is to also recognize that we're pilgrims on this earth and that this body's temporary, that our home is in heaven.
Right.
Okay, so therefore, if you understood that the majority of anything tends to be self-destructive, then you would realize not to be obsessed with what's popular,
Yeah.
not to be obsessed with a self-identity,
Yeah.
and not to assume that your value is based on the approval of others. This doesn't mean that you don't care what other people think. I remember 30 years ago, people would say, you got to love yourself before you can love others. And that's not 100% true, because if you actually love God, then you overcome self.
Yeah.
And
It's
you're
hard
more-
to help anybody else if you hate yourself. I think was what they were trying to overcome.
Right, and then I think too, like with identity, people will say, people that recognize this obsession with self-identity, they'll say, I don't care what other people think.
Right.
That actually is not healthy either.
Right.
It's okay to care about what other people think, but you shouldn't value yourself subjected to other people's common opinion.
Right.
The value that you have should be of no value and be replaced with what is valuable, which is love and goodness and truth.
Yep.
And it's how well you experience the fruits of the Spirit and how well you allow the Spirit to be a part of your life is your value,
Mm-hmm.
not how you fit in with other people.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so question number 3 is, how does a verse like this help give a person a more independent mind?
Okay, I think my last answer I'm just going to read out for this question.
Your last what?
My last answer fits this question better than it did question 2.
I say sometimes you get 2 or 3 steps ahead of me. This is my
Guess I did
next.
on that one.
Okay. Well, it's not going to come as a shock that I don't think the political junkies or the people who are obsessed with popularity are thinking objectively.
You didn't think they were right.
No.
Doesn't look right.
I also don't think the social discriminations are 100% objective.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 3, and we'll start with Lily on this one, is how does a verse like this help give a person a more independent mind?
And it forces you to analyze your surroundings more and form your own opinions rather than looking to others to make them for you.
Yeah, that's true. Emma?
Demonstrates that God does not support following a group or a position without critically assessing the beliefs held in the positions of group.
Very good answer, Emma. Benjamin?
If you reject popular opinion, you spend more time seeking the truth, based on what you see rather than opinion.
Yep, yep. And Richard.
I said, if you, yeah, identity tied to opinions is based on a popular consensus. So if you believe that the consensus is likely to be wrong, then you might try to come up with your own opinions based on facts, evidence, or results.
But even though I know that whatsoever is highly esteemed must be an abomination to the Lord because of this verse, I personally don't come to it from a place that assuming all popular opinion is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What the verse does is give me the freedom to weigh all opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not God, so I may not necessarily come to the exact 100% correct truth at all times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God's ways are higher than ours, so we're never going to know the truth, 100%. Okay, but if you are obsessed with promoting a self-image and obsessed with how you appear to society, then you limit your mind to what's popular in your group.
Mm-hmm.
And then this results to the manifestation of this then becomes, after you've done this enough, then you look to the group to give you an opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas, so you don't necessarily have to assume that people are wrong. Personally, I find when it comes to the consumer world, popular opinion is relatively accurate. But I find in the emotional world, popular opinion, is almost retarded. It wasn't though. Like if you look at like some old stories from the 50s, popular opinion was way more accurate than it is now. The flaw during the church age was on the intense levels, but now it seems to have shifted to more common. But needless to say, if you don't feel anchored to have to be popular,
Yeah.
then you can have a more independent thought, and you can have opinions that one group might support, and then you can also share some opinions that an opposing group might have, if they happen to be right. Like I often have used in Bible study, the popular opinion I use the most because I just feel it's the easiest one, is gun control, right? Is that the liberals are clearly right that we shouldn't have machine guns, free access to guns, and allow everybody to get one. And the Republicans or the conservatives are clearly correct that banning guns in one town will just give guns to the criminals, and not allowing the teachers to have a gun just makes them an open target to the students, right? It would be so nice if both sides could see the logic of the other side.
Right.
But they can't, because if you're a liberal and you're 100% against guns, you can't actually recognize that, say, banning them in New York City is just going to make crime worse.
Well,
Or
you also you're not just against the guns, but you're against those people. So anything they say, it's got to be wrong too.
then if you're a conservative and then you see some lunatic grab a gun and start shooting people,
Then hell.
then you don't want to recognize that maybe this wasn't a good idea.
Right.
To have it, because you have to fit in one group.
Right.
But I think in those instances, both groups have points.
Right.
Both groups are right and both groups are wrong. But needless to say, if you have an independent mind, you don't have to be married to an ideology,
Right.
which is kind of ironic because a lot of ideologies come from false religion, and the Bible itself is what teaches you how to be free from an ideology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's ironic.
yeah, but can you see what I'm saying?
Yep. Definitely.
Okay, so if society believed in this verse, how would it inspire us not to be so divided? So if you actually believe that whatsoever things are highly esteemed or expended as abomination, why would this make us not divided? It's kind of another irony. Okay, so question number 4, we'll start with Lily again. Is if society believed in this verse, how would it inspire us to not be so divided?
If your subgroup hates another subgroup, you're expected to do the same, and this helps you to not care as much about what your subgroup thinks.
Yep, I mean, that's the basic common sense of it. That's correct. Emma?
So we wouldn't have classism. We would treat people with grace and kindness and based on the way they behave, not how much money they have or who likes them or if they have all the popular things, etc.
Yes, yes. I mean, I don't know if I've heard that term before, but yeah, it's classism is a similar word to the caste system, and even though we don't have a formal caste system like they do in India, we do have it in our social discriminations, and it would, if you were realizing that what's popular is an abomination, you'd look at people's virtue, and you wouldn't even care about what group they're in. Okay, Benjamin.
If you're not focused on what is esteemed in your group, you will see people as individuals and look for the good in everyone rather than putting people in a box based on their opinions. They might not even be in that box, but you're gonna stick them there because they have an opinion of someone that's in that box and reject them based on that.
Yes, yep, another good answer. Nice different take on the same topic too. And Richard.
So these divisions are caused by people identifying with the popular opinions of a particular group and then finding opposition with people who have a differing popular opinion. If we stop trying to adopt these opinions, then we can see the benefits of cooperation.
Yes, and I don't know about you, but like I have all day with myself and all day to think my thoughts and to do what I want. You know, I mean, I don't mean this to an extreme. Like I don't want someone necessarily to have completely different values, But I like people that are different. I like people that have different desires and different tastes because
Yeah.
I think it makes life more interesting.
Right.
If I, I don't have a lot of friends, but if I did, I really wouldn't be looking for a clone.
Right.
I kind of like someone that would complement me that has a different take and different feelings. And I think that they used to have a saying, "Variety is the spice of life." I think
Yeah.
it was referring to this concept, but I think that if you just focused on the virtue of a person without regard to your self-image or what you fear or what you're worried about what other people are going to do,
Mhm.
then you could see people for who they are,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't have we have a lot of social discriminations. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not as bad as people lynching a black man for being on an elevator with a white woman,
Mhm.
but there's more of them, and the totality of them creates isolation. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily causing people to get lynched in the street, but it is causing people to have cold feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you, I lost my thought. But, oh well.
But in the case of our immigration, there's some degree of lynching in the streets. That's happened. It's not as bad as the past, right?
Mhm.
But needless to say, um, we would not be divided if we connected through God and virtue.
Right.
But because we've moved away from God, we're now moving towards a vanity of what's popular in our group. And I think the positive thing from the apostasy is it gives credit to God, because I think people, like especially in the 80s when they moved away from God, they thought we were getting more advanced. I think it's clear that people are not getting more advanced. They're not becoming more critical thinking. They're not more tolerant of other people, and they're not loving each other, and families aren't closer, and people aren't becoming more mentally sound.
Mhm.
And life isn't getting easier, and people are not working less hours.
No.
You know, and okay, now if you look at verse 5, which ties into, some of us might have included part of question 5 in our answers. How does believing in a verse like this help overcome tribalism? It's the same basic question as question 4, but it's getting more specific. So forgive me if I was a little monotonous on this point, but okay, Ben, so question number 5 is, how does believing in a verse like this help people to overcome tribalism?
If you value, if you value what is popular in the group over virtue, you'll hate people of another group that disagrees with yours because it's popular to hate them rather than seeing them as people and appreciating what's good about them.
Yes, it's almost like you didn't quite complete the thought, but what you're saying is
Yeah.
correct. Okay, Emma.
You wouldn't box people in, you certainly would base the way you treat people based on how popular they are or their beliefs and what box you assess them to be in.
Yes, yes. Yeah, be basing more on their virtue, but yeah, Lily.
Yes, it helps you to see others for who they are rather than what group they're in.
Yep, and Richard.
So tribalism is a kind of hatred based on opposing factions of popular ideas and culture. If you realize that popularity itself is a mistake, even like in an intellectual realm, like if you're just thinking popular thoughts, then you won't have a tribe to defend or to validate.
Yes, of course, it'd be nice to be part of the tribe of the 12 apostles, Paul and alike, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like I said, this is not much different than question number 4, but I think if you just to get more specific, like we were talking about people's obsession with what's popular, but then they're also obsessed with being in a group, and
Yeah.
I can't quite understand why, because we live in an isolated world, so it's like people might approve of you online and click likes on your
Yeah.
social media, but they're not really spending time with each other.
That's why I had to add that into my answers. Like even in the intellectual sense, even if you don't have people that are giving you attention, you're just thinking the same thoughts as them.
In some reason, that's important to
Yeah.
people, which I would have thought it would have been important if you actually were hanging out with each
Right.
other, being close to each other, spending time with each other.
Right.
Then it would make more sense.
Yeah.
But we live in an isolated world, but I think that people are putting their position, and I'm so isolated I can't tell you exactly what the position is, but they're putting their position in their group to be the most important thing. And I think it started like when we had the fear culture that we just overcame in recent times. People would then discriminate against everybody that they thought didn't look like in their group, and then they basically felt that whoever wasn't in their group was a danger.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're looking at, instead of seeing people as a danger, we're seeing them now as a threat. So then when you see them as a threat, it makes tribalism more. But the only way to break that is to, instead of focusing on why your group is better,
Right.
is actually overcoming the problem, which is the obsession with popularity.
Right.
And you overcome the obsession with popularity by focusing on purity, goodness, character, truth, and virtue.
Right.
And if you evaluate people based on those principles, then if they're in a group that you're totally against, you're going to still like them. You might say, oh, gee, you got a couple twisted values there, but you still, you should like everybody that's a righteous person.
Right.
Regardless of where they come from. So
Yeah.
I think that tribalism is based on wanting to feel superior to other people,
Mm-hmm.
based on a subconscious, blatant insecurity
Yes.
that comes from a foundation that has a 0% chance of working.
Yep. Agree.
And that will close this week's study. And for those of you online, you'll probably be seeing it 3 weeks from now. And so, dear God, I pray that we all learn to see the benefits of Scripture, and that you help us to get enthusiastic for your word, and that we all get redeemed. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.